Yep. There we are.
I see the numbers. That means we are live. Steeler Nation, what is up? This is the curtain call. I am not Geoffrey Benedict. No, QB1 is out. I think he has Donnie Ayers tickets. I am your Mason Rudolph. My name is Kyle Chrise from the What Yin's Talking About show every Thursday on Behind the Steel Curtain. But with me is, it doesn't matter if it's Mace or if it's Mitch, if it's Benedict. We've got Matt Canada running the offense, Shannon White. How is it going today?
It's going great, man. I'm just, they threw us a curveball, and me and you are meeting for the first time on this podcast. So it's going to be interesting. I'm sure it's going to be a blast. And you got two guys that have a funny bone, and that'll work.
Only in the podcast era can two strangers meet for the first time, although I feel like I've known you forever because I've been reading all of your articles on Behind the Steel Curtain, including this week's big QB wideout tandem think piece, and which is great for today's show because we're talking all about our new wide receiver, George Pickens. What are your general thoughts? How have you come to love George Pickens in the 2 weeks since he's been a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Love his intensity. I'm all about. I'm a linebackers guy. I like a lot of the grunt work on the offensive line, and I love the guys that are really physical. I was a huge Hines Ward fan, and if you watch Pickens, even beyond the altercation with the Georgia Tech cornerback there as a freshman, which I would advise against punching a guy with a helmet, because he depends on his hands, obviously. So, but I do love that intensity. So the more I see, the more I like. So.
Well, we have a couple great guests today. And Pickens going to be a dog, says John, and that makes sense because our first guest from the host of Bleav in Georgia Dawgs, and let's add him to the show. Here, bring him in. And Beasts of the East on Bleav. He knows all things Pickens because he's seen him since he was a caterpillar in the larva stage, and then he watched him blossom into a beautiful Georgia dog. Welcome to the show, Coach Corey Burton. Welcome to the curtain call.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. You guys meeting for the first time, so this is going to be a brand new show. It's going to be a brand new crew, so I'm excited to join in your maiden voyage, Kyle and Shannon. Thanks for having me.
This is, you're the perfect guest because I as a fan, all things I know about George Pickens, I learned in the last, 7 to 8 days or so. You've been studying him for a lot longer than that. He came on as a freshman. Tell me, how did he come on your radar as you? Because you don't just follow the team. You went there, right?
Yeah, I graduated from there. Worked in the recruiting office actually. During the Mark Richt era, the early Mark Richt era. So I've been with that since about 2002. And just being involved with it, you see the recruitment and down south in the SEC, following recruiting is almost like your second team. So you want to see who's coming up. And when he was at Hoover, you could just tell, the intensity you guys raved about. It was there at Hoover. You could just tell when he came in, he was going to come on board and just take over the wide receiver spot, and that he did. I mean, the guy is full of talent, full of just overall intensity, and the guy just gets after it, and he's a tremendous player.
Yeah, he seems like just a tremendous all-around athlete. He's also a very unique personality. Mm-hmm. He seems to be very quirky, not in a bad way per se, but he's different. And so what areas of those characteristics did you see when he was at Georgia?
Well, I mean, you saw it all. I mean, you saw the incident where he squirted water on the Tennessee quarterback. A little bit of gamesmanship there. I don't know that he meant anything malicious by it, but I mean, that's just part of his quirks and his competitiveness and just him just trying to be funny and do something stupid. The fight he got into with the Georgia Tech player that you guys alluded to earlier, that kind of shows his intense side. And, football's a violent game, and that stuff's going to happen every once in a while. And, albeit I don't want him punching people with helmets on and, getting suspended on a regular basis, but, it proved to be a one-off, and it happened and it came and went. And so, not a big deal, but I mean, the guy is going to be a great pro. I mean, when it comes to the game of football, he locks in. I mean, he learns quick, and he will get involved with the Steelers, and Mike Tomlin will have no issues with him. I think he'll get along with that receiving core. I think he'll end up having great chemistry with it, whether it's Trubisky or Pickett or whoever it is at quarterback. He'll have great chemistry there as well. And I think Matt Canada is going to love having George Pickens in his offense.
We got a comment here from Jane and Burt. Physical, we need that. The next Hines Ward, he's not necessarily the same kind of player as the next Hines Ward, but he does have. He likes to block. He's a wide receiver that seems to like to block.
Loves to block. Loves to block. Go back and watch the Orange Bowl. There's a play, another part of his quirky attitude. Like, he loves to block more than anything. It's almost kind of, it's Hines Ward-esque. That'd be a great comparison. But he walks up the line of scrimmage. He shushes the Michigan sideline. Then he shushes the DB that's on him, and then he just goes and throws him 5 yards, and then shushes him again, and then does it over and over. Like, as much as he loves catching those long bombs, like he did in the national championship, or like he did so many times his freshman year before he got hurt. He loves to block just as much with the same intensity, and it's really fun to watch because he's just a total football player.
He's really impressed me learning more about he was chosen. So last year, coming back from that knee injury, and showing that determination, because he really didn't have to.
No.
I mean, I think he would have been chosen probably about where he was, even if he didn't come back, just because of his immense potential and talent. But the fact that he did that shows a lot about his toughness. And the fact that when he did come back, he wasn't the focal point, obviously, on such a great team. He didn't rock the boat. A lot of guys would have been throwing water coolers or, I mean, he squirted that water ball on a guy because that guy looked hot. I mean, if you look at it, it was a hot day.
He needed it, right?
He was hot. And he was like, "Here, buddy, let me help you out." I mean, everybody's making a big deal out of that. But I think that the fact that he didn't show his rear, let's put it that way, when he wasn't getting the ball and he still blocked hard and he still played hard, that says a lot about how he should be able to transition to the pros.
Well, he knew he was lucky to be out there. I mean, coming back from the knee injury he had, at the timing that he had was just, as far as the calendar goes, just catastrophic. I mean, you knew he was going to lose an entire year, probably not going to be the same the next year. His rehab, he had a few setbacks. I mean, he went through a really rough journey of that rehab with the torn ACL. So for him to come back, he came back in the Georgia Tech game. He knew what the deal was. He knew he was just he's basically, the Georgia Tech start was a rehab start. Like, hey, let's see how the knee responds. We'll throw you a target, and we're gonna pull you. You're gonna play about one quarter, and we're gonna pull you. And he was good with that. SEC championship, he made a really big catch early in the game, but he really wasn't a factor because his knee just was not 100%. Orange Bowl, national championship, he gets a little bit more involved, but he became a setup guy. He became and that's not going to be his role in Pittsburgh. I don't think he's not a role player. He's way too talented for that. But I think because of his injury situation and the rehab situation he was dealing with, he really kind of took to that role. He really kind of enjoyed it. And you could see when some of these younger guys like A.D. Mitchell, some of the other guys as well making catches, Brock Bowers, he was just as excited for those guys as he was for himself. And he really wanted to win a national championship, and it was important to him. So that showed me, A, that he's one tough dude, and B, that he wanted to win, and he's an ultimate team guy, and he's going to do what's best for the team as well. And he's really going to ingrain himself with those guys and show those guys he cares about being a part of the team.
Well, everything we're hearing in Steeler Nation, it sounds like this guy is the second coming of T.O. mixed with Mike Williams. So why did he slip then to 52? Is it just the questions about the knee? Is it just the water bottle incidents? Was he really the fifth or sixth best receiver in this class? It's as far as Steeler Nation goes, it sounds like we're sizing him up for the yellow jacket already.
Well, I mean, you guys got to steal with George Pickens. I mean, it was a loaded wide receiver class. I mean, there was 10 guys that could legitimately be picked in the first round, Pickens being one of those guys. Unfortunately, for the wide receiver class, there was also a ton of linemen, linebackers, and defensive players in this draft that was loaded up in the first round. Otherwise, I think any other year, Pickens probably goes towards the tail end of the first round. So for him to, there's a lot of guys that went in the second round, even third round, that were first round talents, like right up the road in Philly, Nakobe Dean. He's a first round talent. Some injury concerns, he's a little bit undersized and he falls to the third round. Philly got a tremendous steal in that. Same with Pickens. I mean, yeah, Olave, Wilson, Burks, Jameson Williams. Yeah, all those guys. Pickens is probably about the 6th or 7th best receiver in this class, which was a loaded class. So for that to get a talent like that in the second round is a huge deal. And I think Pittsburgh sprinted to the podium to make that selection when he fell. I didn't think they thought he was going to be there.
I didn't. Everybody knows I wanted Sky Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's
Sky Moore's talented.
And I thought, they needed a slot guy, and I thought he was perfect for the Steelers. But when they made the Pickens selection, I understood it totally. You watched him, his whole career. Mm-hmm. Coming back from that knee injury, no way he's still 100%.
No.
He went to the combine, runs a 4.47, jumps 36 inch, I think, and whatever his broad jump, almost 11 foot. I mean, that's impressive for a guy that's maybe 80%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, that speaks volumes to what the Steelers are getting. I've heard people compare him to Andre Johnson. And I think a lot of it's because they both are similar size. And, Andre Johnson, beat the crap out of Cortland Finnegan, in that NFL game.
Yeah.
But he was smart enough to take his helmet off. He ripped Finnegan's helmet off before he started hitting. So hopefully that's something that, Hines Ward, somebody can take him to the side and say, listen, young buck, don't hit the guy with the helmet on. Make sure you get it off.
Right. I mean, he matured a lot too, obviously.
Yeah. But I think that the reason that, as you said, he was still there was just it was such a deep class of receivers.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just really excited for what he can be when he's full.
Yeah, that is going to be an incredible thing. That wide receiver room needs a little bit of attitude. They need a guy like George Pickens. Like he fits perfectly with that room because there's some immaturity there with Chase Claypool, some of the stuff that he's doing. Some of the problems that Juju caused before he left. Some of the immaturity stuff that I think George Pickens can come in and say, hey, I've been in a college organization that's been straight business with Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. And I think he's going to bring a little bit of that to Pittsburgh, and Mike Tomlin's going to love him because he is the gritty Hines Ward type receiver. He's a much more like physically gifted Hines Ward. I mean, Hines Ward did a lot of good things, but Hines Ward was kind of like a Swiss Army knife for the Steelers. And I think Pickens is going to be he's going to get some shots downfield. I mean, you watch some of his catches, he's twisting and turning in midair. Like he jumps and contorts his body to make a back shoulder catch on a dive, and you're trying to figure out how the heck he did that. And, does he have an actual spine or is he made out of rubber? I mean, some of the catches he makes are insane. He brings that type of thing to the team, and guys feed off that, and that can you get a couple catches like that in the game. Next thing you know, hey, you're going on a run here, and in a very tight division like the AFC North. Probably need that.
You're a coach. And you study film. What are the coaches going to be looking at Pickens to take his game to the next level? Right. The story or the narrative seems to be, he can do the outside well, but maybe can't run, the entire route tree in the slot or something. Well, how are coaches going to take him to the next level?
I think they're going to train him to be able to move him around in formations, try to hide him a little bit. I think guys in the NFL, the true playmakers, you look at around the league, guys like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, like the Michael Thomases of the world, the number one receivers around the league. You look at what they do. When Julio Jones was in his prime down in Atlanta, Kyle Shanahan moved him all over the field, in the slot. He was even as far as like the number 3 in a 3-by-1 formation, and they just kind of hide him in different places, and they just expand his route tree, get him to perfect and be a little bit more precise with his route running. I think if they can do that, he will jump from here to here. And I think he'll take well to that, because in the NFL, we all know it's all about matchups and trying to figure out how we can get George Pickens on a safety that can't cover as well so that we can hit a big play. And that's the first thing they're going to try to do. Okay, we got Claypool and we got Pickens, both very similar skill sets. Pickens is a, pun intended, he's a dog. And he's going to make, yeah, I love that, Shannon. He's going to make those tough catches across the middle. He's going to catch the ball well in traffic. He's going to go up and get it, where there's a lot of guys in the league that won't or can't. He can do that, and I think with building rapport with Trubisky or building rapport with Kenny Pickett, if he ends up being the starter at some point, those are the type of things where they build that chemistry, they build that connection, that they can just give a little signal or a little eye contact or a little head nod or something, and they can adjust some things. So just continuing to work, just continue to expand what he can do, and expand kind of where he is in the formation, and getting creative with where you put him is going to take him to the next level.
I had a lot of people asking me, well, he didn't have any huge, collegiate seasons. And I said, well, there's 2 reasons. One, Georgia, great running team, heavy run offense. And he never played with basically an NFL caliber first round draft pick.
No.
At quarterback. And I think that is something that when he, gets in there with a pro quarterback, whether it's Trubisky or Pickett, and that accuracy and the ability to progress and lead him, will bring out that part of his game as well. Because if you really watch him closely, he can run different routes. He just hasn't been asked to do it.
He's got to polish it.
Yeah. And not very few collegiate wide receivers come in, fully polished, on the route tree.
No.
They're not asked to anymore. It's a different style of offense, most collegiate offenses, whereas Georgia runs more of a pro style. So I think that's going to help him at this next level. But do you think that Trubisky or Pickett, which one do you think might be a better fit for his skill set?
Right now, Trubisky. I mean, I think people are underselling him a little bit. I mean, he had the Nagy effect in Chicago. So he's a talented guy. I just think he was picked a little high. I just think they expected too much of him coming in as a rookie in that situation. I think with the right amount, I think he got a lot of great coaching under Brian Daboll the last couple seasons in Buffalo. So when you look at his development, we will see kind of how that shakes out in training camp, where he's going to be the guy again. And so to me, I like Trubisky better right now than I did when he was in Chicago, because I just didn't think he had enough starts under his belt at North Carolina when he was coming out in that draft class.
Nope.
I think he does now, and I think he got a little bit better each year in Chicago. But you know how the NFL is; it's fickle, it's impatient, and they just kind of. And he was going to go nowhere with Matt Nagy. Justin Fields is not going to go anywhere with Matt Nagy. I mean, it's a tough situation to be in. Chicago was just their last regime was not very good from the GM down, and I think they've improved obviously. But you look at a guy like Trubisky coming from Buffalo, like I said, just learning behind Josh Allen and picking his brain and just getting those quality reps. I mean, the couple starts he had in place of Josh Allen due to injury, he looked pretty good, looked pretty comfortable, and looked in command of the offense, which I don't know if that was a Buffalo thing or if that was kind of a sign of that Mitch Trubisky is maturing a little bit. But I think if you look at the situations around the league, this is probably one of the better situations he could have landed in because it's a mature organization. You have probably I think he's the second longest tenured coach now, Mike Tomlin. So you have a stable organization, you have a stable coaching staff. Matt Canada is starting to kind of grow as an offensive coordinator. There's no longer Big Ben sitting there, and he's retired. So, the team is yours. The team is much younger. So you have a chance to come in and gel with these guys that, and start fresh, because there's not a lot of guys on this team that are, so stuck in with Ben Roethlisberger that, they can't adjust. These guys are young enough to be able to say, okay, hey, he's our new guy. And so I think it'll be Trubisky, honestly, because he's been battle tested, and Pickett will sit for a year or two. And then, he's going to be a bridge quarterback. Let's just be honest about that. You don't draft Kenny Pickett in the first round to sit him for 3-4 years. So, Trubisky, unless he just starts lighting the world on fire, he will be the bridge guy and getting Kenny Pickett ready when he's ready. So, but I like Trubisky a lot.
Well, you're not the only Trubisky. You got another one in the comments. 2 votes for Trubisky. So since I'm the backup here, I'll vote for Mace. So I'll say Mace to Pickens is your new tandem.
There you go.
Hey, Coach, before we let you go here, why don't you tell us, if where we can find you, because you are an expert on all things film in Georgia. Tell us where we can find you elsewhere.
Well, you can find me in a lot of places. At Coach Burton 36, obviously. I host a show. We record every Thursday night. We go live the show goes live every Friday morning. Bleav in Georgia Dawgs. I host that with Israel Troop. You can find him at TroopStar28. He's our local wide receiver. He was a wide receiver for Georgia. Him and I host that. We also join forces on Beast of the East on the Bleav Network. That's every Monday night. That is a live show, and we do post on the audio platform as well. But that is a live show every Monday evening. You can find me actually when you get done listening to this in about 30 minutes. So I'll start my SEC After Dark show. That's also live on YouTube and lives on the Beast of the East podcast channel as well. So it's kind of like a double featured show. Right now it's a seasonal show, but it might turn into a year-round show. But the Illegal Motion podcast, I host that with Matt Perkins from the Bleav in Badgers podcast, and also Josh Cook, who's our resident Iowa fan. So I'm in a lot of different places, do a lot of different things. So and of course, at Coach Burton 36, you can find all my football stuff that I talk about occasionally on my Twitter feed, and at Coach Corey Burton on Instagram, at Bleav in Dawgs on all social media platforms is where you can find me. YouTube channel as well. My link tree is up on my profile as well. So got a lot of good things going. Obviously the draft was very, very good for the Georgia Bulldogs, and provided us some great content over the last few weeks. So, but
awesome.
I appreciate you guys having me, man. This was fun.
Hey, man, all day, every day, talking sports at Coach Burton 36. Corey, thanks for coming on. We'll probably be checking in with you when whenever they sell out of those gray hijabs that he's been wearing. So we'll come back to you looking for those.
Absolutely. Yeah, buy stock in George Pickens. He's going to be a star, no doubt about it, man. So you guys got a great one there, and I'm glad he's in the Steelers organization and not some other, organization in the AFC North. Not those.
True that.
Guys.
All right, we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Coach.
You guys. Thank you.
All right, we've got another great guest coming up. We've got to take a quick commercial break. But only if you're listening on the podcast. Stay with us if you're on YouTube and Facebook. Mm-hmm. We'll be right back for the second half of The Curtain Call. And we're back. I told you, if you were waiting, you didn't have to wait long. We're back. It's the second half of The Curtain Call. I am filling in for Geoffrey Benedict. My name's Kyle Chrise from the What Yin's Talking About podcast on Thursdays. But luckily, our anchor, Shannon White, is here. Shannon, are you going to get one of those gray, what are they, hijabs? I don't know. What's George Pickens been wearing? Is that going to be a must wear for Steeler Nation?
I'm not sure. I don't think I can pull it off. I think I might look like a walrus if I tried to wear that. So I'm going to avoid that look. But it might work for you.
I'll be honest. I've already looked on Amazon. If they weren't I want the Nike official Nike one because that's what he wears, and it's just out of my budget. I can't spend on a what do they call it? They call it a balaclava. I don't know. I thought it was
something like that. Well,
joining us now to talk more George Pickens. Maybe this guy looks good in a balaclava. He is the managing editor of Dawg Sports, SB Nation's website for all things Georgia Bulldogs. Here to talk more George Pickens. It's Jeremy Attaway. Welcome to the Curtain Call.
I left my balaclava at home. I can still come on, right?
Yes.
Hey, if you've got one, then you have more cred than anyone in Steeler Nation so far. So,
George is a unique guy. He's a fun guy to watch play and talk to. I think that he's a guy who Steeler fans are really going to enjoy. I think really kind of have a growing affection for the more they see him.
Yeah, I think that. Well, first, welcome and thank you for being here. If you have one of them, if you want to go put it on, we'll give you a second. But then you might show us up. We're the eye candy around here. So, but Pickens is. We need somebody with some intensity. The wide receiver group is not very physical. They had Juju Smith-Schuster, and he would try to run through some tackles and stuff, but then he got hurt doing that, so that wasn't good. But the other guys they're not really good for fighting for yards after the catch and stuff of that nature. And a lot of times you get a dog like Pickens, and you get him in there, and he can lead by example even as a rookie, because that's contagious. Being physical, being intense, that gets everybody jazzed up, and then they're out there trying to do the same thing. So, did you see that? Did he have that kind of influence on his teammates at Georgia?
Yeah. George is an incredibly intense player to the point that Kirby Smart has had to talk some, not so much in 2021, but previously, about dialing George back a little bit, right? And kind of getting him to focus and kind of harness that intensity. He had some issues with some personal fouls. If you go look on YouTube, you can probably find the video during the Georgia Tech game in 2020. He did not take kindly to Ken Swilling Jr. From Georgia Tech, kind of giving him the business a little bit. So he slammed him into a brick wall. That kind of thing is frowned upon, obviously, in the NFL. There was an incident where he squirted water from a water bottle on Jared Garantano from Tennessee on the sideline.
He was hot. He was hot.
Yeah, he said, "Hey, I was just kind of playing around." And it's something that how many times at a football practice have you seen a guy take a water bottle and and squirt one of his buddies with it? It was a very spontaneous kind of thing. It's a 15-yard personal foul penalty in the SEC. Not malicious kind of stuff, but those were sort of the maturity issues that Kirby Smart talked about the first couple of years that he was in Athens. They had to work on. What we saw of him on the field in 2021, a lot of that was handled. And a lot of guys on the squad talked about him as a player, even when he was out rehabbing that knee injury. Who was always there for the mental reps, who was coaching younger guys. George Pickens has, I think, a lot more maturity, and he demonstrated that in 2021. He also demonstrated it with his dedication to the rehab regimen. I mean, we're talking about a guy who tears his ACL in spring practice. Most guys that's out for the season. He still ends up making it back for 5 games, averages 21.4 yards per reception in those 5 games, and has some of the biggest catches of his career in that stretch coming back. Catches a huge ball early against Alabama in the national championship game. The fact that he was able to come back and do that, I think, is a good indication of the work ethic that we've seen from George Pickens. And that's an important thing, I think, that probably fans may not know about. Didn't get to see a lot of him on the field if you weren't a Georgia fan. There was kind of that issue of diminishing returns. He played 14 games as a true freshman, only made it into 8 games as a sophomore. And then because of the injury, has 4 games as a junior. And so, that's the kind of thing that, the casual fan probably is not really aware of the reasons behind that. The Steelers, I think, probably, got a guy who, if he had been healthy for his senior year, would not have been there at the 52nd pick. I mean, he's a guy who would have almost certainly been a top 15 or top 20 pick. He got through all the medical stuff. We knew in the latter part of the year that the ACL tear was not, it was not of a grade that really was going to be a multi-year rehab. And so, he has good range of motion, good flexibility in the knee. So I think all that's a go. The question again with George is, he doesn't have as many games on the field as a lot of receivers who came out do. As a result, he doesn't really have all the game film to work through. And so he's still a little unpolished as a route runner. But those are things that can be, that can be fixed. Those are things that can be polished. You can't teach anybody his catch radius. You can't teach the body control that he has. You certainly can't teach running a 4.47 40 at 6'3" and 205 pounds. These are things that George Pickens has that I think are going to be a huge asset, for the Steelers going forward.
Yeah, here's the comment from Cason Wright. Like, first Pickens highlight's going to have me out of my seat. I know fans are going to be waiting that first, trip to the end zone. There's going to be a lot of jerseys sold, I think. But you talked about how, he played as a true freshman, but then only played in 8 games that sophomore year. But that's mostly due to COVID season, or was there more to it than that?
Yeah, there were some issues, right? With him needing to do the things in practice to crack the lineup. Georgia's deep everywhere on the roster, right? But Georgia was pretty deep, especially in 2020, in terms of guys trying to crack that rotation. Guys like Jeremy Burton, for example. You're talking about a guy who's a 5-star recruit coming out, does a lot for Georgia in 2020. Is one of the leading receivers on the team. 2021 takes a step back because there's just so much talent around. He transfers to Alabama for more playing time. That's not something that you really expect to see. So when you're talking about a guy like George Pickens, who's the reason people transfer to Alabama for more playing time, that's something you don't hear a lot. That should ring some bells, right? That's a big deal. Looking forward, forecasting him into the NFL, I think the other thing he brings is a lot of versatility. You're talking about a guy who can play either the X or the Z. Is good coming out of motion. He's got that explosiveness. So if you want to move him around some, I'm kind of interesting to see him with Austin, the other pick. I think that gives the Steelers a good young kind of nucleus, a 1-2 punch that they can start working in to the roster. And so, that's 2 guys who I think will probably also have the chance to make each other better early on in their career. And that there's something to be said for that. I saw you had Coach Burton on earlier. I didn't know that. So that was a good tasting guest. He said Trubinsky's probably a little underrated. I sort of take the position as somebody who watched a lot of Kenny Pickett that I think he ultimately ends up as the guy, right? You don't draft quarterback that high to sit him. I guess unless you're Chicago and you're talking about Mitch Trubinsky, but really, I think the pick of George Pickens looks like a pick that the Steelers front office has an idea of what they want their football team to look like offensively, and having a guy like that who has the tools that he has is a big part of that. So that's kudos to them. I think it's going to work out for them.
With this modern salary cap and, your 5-year, options with your first round picks, I Bleav that's one of the main reasons that they were really interested in getting a quarterback this year. And I think they like Kenny Pickens best all along because supposedly Trubisky, when he signed his contract, he already knew that if Pickett was there, they were going to take him. And he said so in an interview. So, he wasn't like he was brought in thinking, there's not going to be any competition. So if I was the Steelers, the way the situation is, if you could get, if Trubisky starts and you got Johnson and Claypool as your 2 main starting receivers, in preseason reps is going to go Pickett to Pickens. And you can start developing that special chemistry because it just takes so much time and reps and hard work. And when you look at what Pickett has done to develop, over 5 years, and then Pickens as well to come back from that ACL injury and surgery, I think they have that work ethic necessary to develop something special there. Was there one quarterback that he seemed to connect well with or better at Georgia than others?
Probably Jake Fromm. Truth be told, in 2019, Jake Fromm coincidentally had probably statistically the worst year of his career, the year before he came out. I mean, people forget we're talking about a guy who a lot of people had tabbed. At one point, he was the Heisman favorite. Going into that year. And a lot of us who follow Georgia were kind of pumping the brakes on that because you may remember the Bulldogs lost an unbelievable amount of receiving talent coming into that season. They lost McCole Hardman, they lost Terry Godwin, they lost who all else they had. Jeremiah Holloman, who would have been their leading returning receiver, was kicked off the team due to some conduct issues. It was just the cupboard was essentially bare going into that season, and George Pickens sort of emerged as a true freshman as the go-to receiver. It was a situation where he was a late commit to Georgia. He'd been committed to Auburn sort of quietly. He was one of those 5-star prospects who commits fairly early and then nobody hears from. He just shuts it down and then takes a couple of quiet visits to Georgia and says, "Nope, switching." Kirby Smart has signed a 5-star receiver. Nobody from Georgia, nobody who covers Georgia is there for the announcement. They didn't know about it. He's like, "Nope, I'm going to Georgia." And so then spring practice comes around and he's making these acrobatic circus catches. So the good deal with George Pickens, I think, is that he makes that sort of pro style quarterback look good. Because he's a guy you can throw to in a tight window, and he's got the hand strength, he's got the body control to make the catches in those kind of tight spaces. At the same time, he's also got the downfield ability to get separation. Occasionally, one of my favorite things was watching sort of the progression during a game of a defensive back try to figure out how to cover George Pickens. And usually early in the year, it would start with them giving him about 6 yards of cushion, which is a horrible mistake. And then it would progress to them trying to play bump and run, which was an even worse mistake. And you saw some of that this year in the semifinal game against Michigan, where one of the Michigan defensive backs, is right up in his face on the line, is apparently unaware that it's a running play to the other side of the field. Pickens just clears him out. Just shoved him 7 yards.
Pancake.
Looks at the Michigan sideline and goes,
Yeah.
like that. If there's an underrated part of George's game, I think it is his blocking. George is a very physical blocker when he wants to be. That's something that he probably needs to work on in terms of NFL pedigree, is that consistency. I'm sure you guys probably watched Hines Ward. One of the best blockers from the receiver position, right, that we've ever seen.
They changed the rules.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
One of the things about Hines Ward was that just amazing consistency. Everything from stance to body lean to effort. Every play was consistent, and so it made him a hard matchup. And George Pickens is not there, right? If he gets there, that'd be great for him, because then he probably ends up in Canton one day. But it's a long way to go in terms of that consistency.
Steeler Nation knows all about the culture that Mike Tomlin brings. The standard is a standard. But what does Kirby Smart? What's the culture in Georgia that Pickens comes to Pittsburgh with?
The two things that are important to remember that have been kind of cultural touchstones for Kirby Smart. He actually brought to Georgia a guy named Trevor Moat, who sadly succumbed to cancer a couple of years ago. Brought Trevor on as a mental conditioning coach for Georgia, and one of Trevor's favorite sayings was, "It takes what it takes," and that was kind of Kirby Smart's motto, is that we do whatever it takes to win, and that kind of morphed in 2021. And he sort of famously gave a speech after they just keel hauled a Tennessee team that was supposed to give them a matchup, and he said, "We're not building a team to beat those guys or to beat the next team. We're building a team to beat everybody." And ultimately they did that. But the thing that he did in order to do that, ruthless competition in practice. It was not unusual. Practices at Georgia are mostly closed. You might get 15 minutes of media viewing in season, even that's gone. But if you talk to people who watch practice, it's not uncommon for us to be told, guys who had been starting on the offensive or defensive line, some of whom, quite frankly, heard their names called in the first 3 rounds of the draft the other night, to see those guys taking third-team reps. Why? Well, they didn't have a good practice yesterday. And that's all it took, right? And so George Pickens has spent 3 years in that culture of sort of ruthless competition. And it's not, it's not cutthroat, and it's not, not to be cynical, but Kirby Smart will tell you, look at, football at the level that we play it as a business, right? And as a team, you love each other and you want each other to succeed, but Kirby Smart does not, as the football coach at Georgia, have the option of giving people the benefit of the doubt, right? He has to put the best 22 players out on the field every single time. And so George Pickens is going to come in from that culture. I would say there's about a 25 to 30% chance that at some point, just based on past experience at Georgia, there's a reasonable chance that you hear some report of him crawling somebody, a teammate in practice, and them not liking it. It'll be interesting to see at what point that happens. I could easily see happening. He's not a shy, retiring guy. That's kind of something to just file away.
Based on all the reports that we've seen and been reading and hearing, he's so intense. And as you said, that competition, when you go to Alabama, any of the SEC schools, let's say, but if you go to Alabama, you go to Georgia, these guys come in, they've already faced NFL level competition in a lot of games. So that's one of the biggest adjustment periods for so many of these young players, is to match up against somebody. They haven't always been the best athlete on the field. They haven't always had a huge athletic advantage every game, every snap. So he's had to compete, and he's willing to fight to do it, but he will be successful. So if he brings that to the NFL and to the Steelers, I believe that it will transition much quicker than a lot of the guys who come from smaller schools, because the speed of the game and the level of competition just is amped up so big. But Pickens, what kind of relationship does Hines Ward have any relationship with the team now? I mean, as far as have you seen him come back for any alumni games, or could he have already met Pickens in the past?
Oh yeah, they've met. Yeah, no, Hines Ward is around. Georgia has a lot of former players who come around, and I think that's something that you get with a coach like Kirby Smart, who is himself a UGA alumnus. Played at Georgia, was an All-SEC defensive back. You've got Will Muschamp on staff, who also played at Georgia. It's a staff where they have those guys come around. A lot of former Bulldogs who are NFL players. So I haven't seen the two of them in the same room, but the chances are are functionally nil. That there hasn't been some contact there, because I know Hines has been around the team a good bit, in the past.
Jeremy, before we let you go, let us know where we can get more of your expertise and analysis out there on the internet and beyond.
Sure. Yeah. You can catch me at dawgsports.com. That's, we spell dog the way God intended, DAWGSPORTS.com. So yeah, it's sort of odd because, running a Georgia site, it's sort of an interesting niche, because I've heard we have a basketball team, but there's really been no evidence to substantiate that for the past 5 years. So it's pretty much all football and a little bit of golf this time of year. The latest article you'll see up on the site is on the PGA Tour, because there's something like 12 former UGA golfers playing on the PGA Tour. So you'll see some of that. But we're starting to do a little bit of season recap stuff from 2021. We've got a series coming up where we go game by game. We look at the lessons that we thought we learned from those games versus the lesson that we ultimately learned from those games. And it's a good exercise to go back and read what you wrote and what people commented on the site at the time, what they thought we learned about those games. And you end up finding out that, sometimes you were perhaps a bit hasty. So that's good. We've also got a decent amount of coverage of some of the guys who were drafted out of Georgia this past year that you can kind of scroll down and find there on the site as well.
Wow, accountability on your own coverage. That's wow, that is a rarity. Record this podcast, because you'll never see this again in sports media. So
hey, Jeremy, I wanted to say one thing. And I've been told this for years, but I know you think you'll see it. If you look real close, everything. The bulldog is my spirit animal. It is. It's my spirit animal. So I feel a kinship to the Bulldogs, and I was rooting for them in the championship game. So appreciate you coming on, and I just felt a kinship with you.
Yeah, no. Well, hopefully we'll get to do this again next year when the Steelers draft a couple more Bulldogs.
Yeah, definitely.
Jeremy, thank you. We will see you next time Pickens is making headlines. We'll come right back at you.
Sounds good. I'll bring my balaclava.
Yes.
Thank you. I need mine. Yes. All right. We'll catch you around. See you, Jeremy. All right. That wraps up another edition of the Curtain Call. I think I did an okay job. I did above the Mendoza line.
You was awesome, Kyle. I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to be honest. You done awesome.
I'm not getting my Pickens jersey yet, though. But these guys convinced me, though. It might be the next jersey in the on deck.
Yes.
All right, Shannon. Before we go, what do you have coming to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com this week?
Well, my last article posted today, as we talked about earlier, about the Steelers trying to identify their next quarterback wide receiver combo, so check that out, and I'll have another article dropping later this week. But and then of course, it might be a guest on another podcast. You don't know, but of course, Steelers hangover Monday night. Check it out with me, Bad, and Tony. So it's just check out all the podcasts, because it's the off season, but there's really never an off season with the mini camps and the OTAs and training camp coming up. It's an exciting time. I know you're excited, Kyle.
I'm so excited. I'm already. I got my Tyler Snead jersey on order. So.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Psych.
You're showing faith there now, brother. That's some faith.
Talk about wide receiver combos. I'm ready for Mitch to Tyler Snead.
What is it? Oladukin to Snead. That is the next great combination for the Steelers. Yes.
That's the next generation of Steeler QB wideout combos.
Yes.
Thanks to everyone in the chat, in the comments. Great show. Thank you. I think it was a great show, and it was because of the comments, but mostly Shannon and our guests. Until next week, I'm Kyle Chrise. This has been the Curtain Call. Go Steelers.